Hi, I'm Darcy Clark, and this is a video series working on ways to improve your balance from the feet up. So today's video, the first one, will be focusing on the feet, and you can think of the feet as having four major functions. And the first one is the foundation. So our feet are our foundation. That's how our body supports our weight down into the feet. And that leads to the second function of the feet, which is shock absorption. So with each step, the foot absorbs our weight and rebounds our weight so that we're not putting too much stress or strain on the joints further up the leg, the knee, the hip, and even up through the spine. And with each step, our feet are able to sense the ground. So that's the third function of the feet. Our feet have thousands of nerve endings in each foot, and that helps to sense the ground and to sense whether there's any uneven surfaces for the foot that the foot might have to respond to and mold into in order to keep you balanced so the whole body isn't thrown off. And the fourth function of the foot is to propel us forward, to propel our body through space. So with each step, we're moving, and that movement starts from the feet up through the body. And so today's video, we're going to be moving the feet and finding ways to keep the function and the mobility of the foot, and also finding, as we find those movements, we'll also be strengthening the muscles in the feet. It helps to know a little bit of anatomy of the feet so that you can picture just what it's really capable of. So over 25% of the bones in our body are actually in our feet, precisely 26 bones. And those bones are held together with over 100 ligaments and to form about 33 joints in our body, joints in our feet, in each foot this is. So you can think of joints being where the bones, where the bones meet and where movement occurs in our skeleton. So when you think of the foot that way, as having 33 joints and 26 bones, and then over around 20 muscles in the feet that help to move those structures, our foot is actually incredibly capable of movement. However, we tend to live most of our hours with our feet covered in shoes or some other protective footwear. What that does is it sort of makes our feet rather lazy, that the feet sort of forget and are no longer accustomed to moving and responding to uneven surfaces because we don't really walk a lot on uneven surfaces. So in today's video, we're going to just move the feet in pretty simple ways. It may not be easy, especially if you're new to this. But the amazing thing is that as you stay with these exercises, as you just keep trying and practicing them, what felt impossible not long ago becomes possible, okay, rather quickly. All right, so stick with it. So for today's practice, you can do it either standing or seated in a chair. I think I'll do it sitting in a chair so I can just show you how it's done that way. If you do it standing, you're obviously challenging your balance a little more, but feel free to do either. You might also want 2 yoga blocks and or a small sort of footstool or a couple stacks of books just to rest your foot on if you're sitting in a chair, or even actually if you're standing, it would come in handy. Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to start by lifting one foot off the floor, just enough to be able to move the ankle, and try to point the toes and then stretch the toes back. So a pretty simple movement for the ankle, and you might just notice that your toes are moving as well. But try not to move the knee, try not to move the hip, okay? And just notice as you do this, you're also waking up the muscles in your lower leg, in your calf, in your front shin, and around your ankle. And you might notice there's some tightness maybe at the top of the foot as you point your toes, and maybe through the back of the ankle and into the calf as you stretch out through the heel, bring the toes back. So when you point the toes, that's called plantar flexion, and when you lift the toes back, dorsiflexion. Or more commonly, just pointing and flexing the foot. Okay, and then just give that foot a bit of a break, and you can lift the other foot, and again, do the same thing. And you might notice that this foot feels a little different, right? Each leg is used very differently in our daily life, and how we stand on our feet, how we bring weight, how we put weight into our feet affects how our whole body responds to the ground beneath us. So you might notice how this foot feels, and maybe some spots that feel tight differently on this side. Okay, and then rest that foot and go back to the first side. And if you're using a stool or a couple blocks, you can feel free to put your ankle onto that block. And we're going to start with, it's a bit tricky to find this movement, so you want to try to find the movement as much as possible through the ankle by moving your baby toe side of the foot away from you and bringing your big toe side, your inner edge of the foot, towards you. That's it. So you get more of a stretch into the side of that ankle, the outside, and then try to do the opposite. Try to bring the baby toe side of the foot closer towards you while the inner edge, the big toe side, moves away from you. So try to move between those two. And you can notice that my whole leg is moving and responding to this movement somewhat. So you might notice a bit of movement coming into the hip, really slight. Maybe a little bit of movement into the knee, but you want to try not to rotate so much in and out. This is more movement from the hip, and try to find that side bend almost through the ankle. Yeah, that's it. And I'll show it to you from a different angle as well on the next foot. That's it. And just notice, see if you can keep your foot mostly dorsiflect, so toes pointing up. Yeah. So your toes aren't moving side to side, which is just as valid, a good movement for the foot, but you're finding more movement through the ankle. That's it. And then you can try it on the other leg. So now with your second leg, second foot, propped up, with your knee and your toes pointing up towards the ceiling, starting there, trying to feel and find that movement in the ankle where you move the big toe side away from you and then the baby toe side of the foot away from you. And you're trying to feel that movement, not just in the toes themselves, so rather than just moving the toes, sort of, you know, not trying to do it in sort of an arc like that, but trying to feel the movement a little more through the whole ankle. So you should be pivoting on the back of your heel here, feeling a little bit of that movement. However, try not to force the movement to be larger than it wants to be, because as soon as you do, then the movement no longer will be in your ankle, and you'll be finding more of the movement in your hip or through the knee. So rather than letting that happen a whole lot, see if you can find the movement more purely from the ankle. And if you've sprained or strained your ankle, or one ankle, again, this can be quite different on each leg, each foot. So then we're going to basically put those two movements together. Stretch out the first leg again, but see if you can keep it off of the blocks of the foot rest for this one, so we can circle. We're rotating at the ankle. And take the movement rather slowly, rather than just sort of rotating fast and without much awareness and attention. See if you can slow the movement down, let it become a little more deliberate. Try to draw as large of a circle as you can through all those sticky spots you might notice. The foot not wanting to go in one direction or wants to skip over a certain part. So just get a sense of that. Feel the toes move around, and then try to find the circles, the rotation in the opposite direction. And again, you want to try not to circle at the knee or move much at the hip up here, but keep the knee and the hip still while you rotate through the ankle. Good, and then relax that foot and lift the other left foot slightly off the floor, enough to rotate this ankle. And you might notice some cracking that might go away or might just stay. And yeah, that's okay. That's movement through the joints, some energy being released. As long as it doesn't hurt. You can also just take it slower, take it a bit of a smaller range of motion to avoid a lot of cracks. Yeah, notice how it feels in this ankle. If you've strained or sprained one ankle, you might notice quite a difference in your mobility. And in the other direction as well, take it. Yeah, just feel the whole foot moving as you circle the ankle, trying to avoid moving a lot through the knee or into the hip. Nice. Good, and then relax that. Okay, and so from here, you can again feel free to lift you don't have to have your feet up on anything, but I think I'll do it for this. We're gonna keep the feet dorsiflect. We can do both feet at once, or we can alternate. Okay, so start out with your feet dorsiflexed and try to keep the ankles in that position while you curl your toes and spread them back. So curling your toes away from you and then stretching them back towards you. And trying to find this movement just in your toes without moving your ankles, without moving your knees, without moving your hips. But what'll want to move more likely are the ankles. So try not to point the foot when you curl the toes, and instead keep the ankles still while you find that movement through your toes. And yeah, you might notice some cracks and releases in the toe bones. Just like that. And then you can try to find the same movement with your feet plantar flex. So you get more length into the tops of the feet. Keep the ankles in this position as you try to spread your toes back and curl them down. Spread them back and curl them down. And just notice, maybe one foot moves a little more easily. Maybe the toes of one foot move a little more easily, or maybe particular toes move more easily. So just things to just notice. That's interesting. Okay. Good, and then relax that. And this time, bring the feet to the floor. Okay, and then for this one, we're gonna move the toes, but with the feet on the floor, where you have your toes and your knees pointing in the same direction. Just start by curling your toes towards the floor and then lifting them up, spreading the toes, releasing them back. So curl like you're lifting small pieces of paper or material, and then lift them off the floor, let them go, and rest them back to the ground. Lift, release, scrunch, lift, release the toes, rest them back. So finding that movement through the feet. And you might even just notice, as you do this movement, does any tension come into the hips? Can you try to relax that tension? Find most of the movement more from your feet. If you get cramps in the feet, feel free to just stretch them out. Often through these movements, waking up the muscles in the feet can lead to foot cramps. It's important though, that's just a good indication that your muscles are waking up, and the more they get used and strengthened, the less they will cramp, okay? But do pause whenever you need to. If you get a cramp, just stretch it out. Okay, and then tap the toes, just relax that. And now we're gonna try to find ways to move the toes independently or individually. So let's see if we can find the movement first just in the toes, all 5 toes. So let's lift all 5 toes off the floor on each foot and then rest them back to the floor. So lifting just the toes, keeping the pads of your feet on the floor, just lifting and resting the toes. Notice whether the toes themselves want to grip. Can they spread and stretch away from the pads of the feet? And even a little bit away from each other. So why don't we this time lift the toes, keep them off the floor, see if we can spread the toes apart and then relax them. Spread the toes apart and relax them. Lift and spread, relax and release. Lift and spread, relax and release. Okay, and then let's see about just lifting the big toe. So you may not be able to lift the big toe on each foot, so you might want to do just one foot at a time, trying it out on one foot for a few times, then trying it out on the other foot for a few times. Trying to lift the big toe without lifting the other 4 toes, if possible. And this is one that often feels impossible if you've never tried it before. But just keep trying, just keep sort of imagining it, visualizing it, and eventually you'll make the connection. And then let's try to keep the big toes down while the other 4 toes on each foot lift and relax. Lift and lower. And again, feel free to do just the one foot, lifting all 4 toes without the big toe. And then doing the same with the other foot, and you might notice that the movement is easy or much more easier on the other foot, on one foot versus another. Okay, and then, oh, and I forgot to mention, if none of these options are working, too, one way to sort of help you along is to bring your hands to the toes. Bring your hands to the other toes that you're not wanting to lift, so that you can get a sense of what muscles you need to engage in order to lift the toe you're wanting to. So here I am, keeping my big toes down while I lift the other 4 toes. So you can do that as well. And then let's just rock from toes to heels, just to help loosen up into the feet a little bit. And yeah, each time you lift your toes, you can even curl them down towards the floor. All right, nice. So there you go. There are simple movements that you can do for your feet throughout your day when you're sitting at your desk. Throw off your shoes, get in even just a few of those movements. You don't have to do all of them. If you notice, having done all of them, that your feet are rather crampy and sore, feel free to just make it a half practice. So do the first few, relax, go about your day. Maybe the following day, do the last half of the video. So you don't have to do it all. But as you familiarize yourself with these movements, you can do them almost, anywhere, while you're riding the subway, while you're riding the bus, while you're sitting in your chair. So I hope that's useful. Keep your eye out for the next video that will be about balancing the weight in your feet. So learning how we carry the weight in our feet and how that affects the balance up through the rest of the body. So thanks very much for joining me, and see you next time.